Hey Trinity family, this is my weekly update. Just wanting to bring you some encouragement from God's Word and look forward together to worshiping on Sunday morning. I don't know about you, but the weather this past week has been encouragement enough to me to just lifting my heart and giving me some sense of hope and refreshment. But all it takes is to plan to go out and run an errand or go out into town and remind myself, don't forget your mask, in order to bring me back to the reality that this new normal is still not totally settled. And so even with the beautiful weather, we're still struggling with the reality of life in this COVID-19 world. And it calls to mind something that we talked about this past Tuesday night in our Zoom discussions on Tuesday nights. These have been really encouraging for me. I've loved getting together about 15 to 20 people who tune in for the discussion and just really rich insight together. This past Tuesday, we talked about when pain is God's megaphone. And just to take us right into the deep end of the pool that night, I led with a reading from Psalm 88. Now, if you know Psalm 88, it's probably the darkest psalm. It has no resolution at the end. The last line of the psalm is, darkness is my closest friend. And of all the psalms, it's one of these psalms of lament that doesn't end with any expression of hope or assurance that God has heard. It simply says, darkness is my closest friend. And so I started with that psalm, started the discussion time there, and at the end of the reading, I just invited folks to respond. What did you hear? What stood out to you in this psalm? And there was silence. Sitting there on our Zoom session, silence all around. I joked then after I could bear the silence no longer. I joked saying that maybe somebody had forgotten to unmute themselves and they were actually talking. But in fact, nobody was saying anything. And then somebody said, when you go through the pain, when you hear a psalm like this, sometimes silence is the only answer that we can give. When we call out to God and we hear the silence of heaven to our prayers, sometimes silence is our only response after we have prayed. I thought that was a very powerful insight, and I share that with you because as we go about these days, as we're calling out to God and asking Him for guidance and assurance that we will get through this, calling out to Him for His provision when we're experiencing financial hardships or health hardships, and it feels like He's not answering. Sometimes to the silence of heaven, our response then is simply silence back, trusting that He is there, He has heard, and He will respond, but He's not responding just yet. He is silent, and so let us be silent as we wait on His response. Maybe this coming weekend, as you get out into the beautiful weather, get out there, take a hike, walk somewhere along the river or a stream, enjoy the beauty of what makes Vermont and New Hampshire so glorious at this time of year. Pause at some point in your walk and just enjoy the silence. Allow the silence to be your silence before God as we wait on Him in these days of uncertainty, in these days of change. Let's wait silently on Him and allow Him to speak to our hearts. I hope that's encouragement to you. I'm praying for you. I love you all. I long for the day when we can be back together physically. I don't know when that's going to be. I keep saying that. I don't know when it's going to be. But until then, stay close to God. Stay close to one another. Let's be in touch. And let's continue to journey with Him. God bless.